Here.
Commissioner Vicki Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Tommy Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Michelle Morgan.
Here.
Commissioner Kevin Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner George Chambers.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. This time, we're going to call on Commissioner Trent North for an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Morgan.
Please join me. Most precious and our wise Father, we come just to give you the honor, to give you the praise, and to give you the glory. Father, we thank you for the men and women that are up here. It is our prayer that our work and our deeds are a reflection of you and not us. Lord, we say a special prayer for Steve Davis and his family. Continue to place your hedge of protection around them. Be there for them, guide them throughout this process. Lord, we ask these prayers in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. This time, we'll work through the agenda. Item number 5 is approval of tonight's agenda. We'll look for a motion from the floor.
So
Make a
moved.
move, do a move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Board, in front of you have the approval of the minutes. We've got a work session minutes from September 26, 2016, as well as the commission meeting minutes from October 4th. Look for approval.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Board. Next item on the agenda is item number 7, public comments, and we do not have any that fall under public comments. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 8, the consent agenda. Items under this action have been discussed at prior public meetings and will be presented under one consideration as a single item. Only one vote will be taken. Tonight's item 8.1, fire rescue, turnout gear. Item 8.2, vehicle request. Item 8.3, City of Roofville. 8.4, intergovernmental agreement with Esco Way. And item 8.5, special tax district establishment.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? At this time, we'll move to item number 9, financial session. We're going to call on Controller for a financial recap from September 2016. Don Johnson.
Yes, Chairman and Board of Commissioners, at the end of September 2016, our total revenues were $3,668,495, which represents 7.3% of our total revenues. Total expenditures were $10,622,557, which represents 21.1% of our total expenditures. Our health budget, we were negative by $246,580, but that will level out in October because we had more expenses in the month of September because of the way the weeks went. And our cash reserves at the end of September 2016 were $3,080,734.
Thank you, Don. Any questions for Don? Seeing none. Thank you, Don. This time, we're going to move on to item number 10. We'll move into the zoning session. First item is 10.1. At this time, I'm going to call for a public hearing to order. We're going to call on Administrator Ortegas to do the reading of the text amendment.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We do have for your consideration a public hearing for a zoning ordinance text amendment this evening, and I'll read the language and then let you all have consideration. Mr. Chairman, this is a text amendment request. This is text amendment to zoning ordinance, whether a convention center and special events facility should be added as a conditional use in the commercial zoning district, so that a new subsection C should be added to the end of section 8.9.2 regarding conditional uses in the commercial zoning district as follows. Conference, convention center, and special events facility. Conference convention center shall mean a facility used for conventions, conferences, seminars, product displays, training, recreation activities, and entertainment functions, along with accessory functions including outdoor displays, food and beverage preparation and service for on-premise consumption. The accommodations can include sleeping, eating, and recreation. The site shall be of sufficient size to accommodate or arrange for all off-street parking associated with an individual event. Special events facility shall mean any place kept, used, maintained, advertised, and held out to the public as a place which serves as a location for special events, including but not limited to weddings and receptions, anniversary receptions, bar and bat mitzvah receptions, birthday parties, and other such parties, receptions, or events. Such facility may include but not be limited to reception halls, conference centers, and banquet centers, and shall not include places of worship or restaurants. The conditional use shall also allow catering to take place on site.
Thank you, Artagus.
Thank you, sir.
At this time, I'm going to open the floor for comments on this text amendment, item 10.1. Our attempt is to keep this, I know we have a lot of people here tonight, but just keep this arena to about 15 minutes if possible. The floor is open.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'll keep my comments brief. My name is Ted Meeker. I'm with the law firm of Sumner Meeker down in Noonan, Georgia. Our physical address is 14 East Broad Street, Noonan, Georgia. I come tonight before the board as somebody who represents local governments, particularly in the South Atlanta area. My only urging to you tonight is to be deliberate in your process about adding. Clearly, the uses you're allowed to put in your zoning districts, that's y'all's decision. But when you make that decision, I would ask that you be deliberate in your process. If there's a time to add the conditions, now would be that time. Simply adding a use to a zoning district can create problems. If an applicant comes before you seeking to get a conditional use permit, yes, you have, I believe it's 13 standards in your ordinance, but there are other conditions that you can impose on certain uses. It's a lot more defensible if you have those conditions in your ordinance as opposed to trying to adopt them or impose them on an applicant when that person is before you. And that would be my only comment on this text amendment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Guyton Cochran. I reside at 505 Bonner Road, across the street from the property under discussion. As Chief Financial Officer for Southwire Company for the past 14 years, much of my responsibility has revolved around planning and growth for Southwire Company. Very much in line with the Board of Commissioners' responsibilities for managing Carroll County's roadmap for future growth. I applaud my public officials and volunteers for the thousands of hours and probably millions of dollars that have been invested in ensuring the county's roadmap for future is well thought out. If I may, I'd like to point out my personal observations after reviewing Carroll County's comprehensive plan that establishes development strategies to implement Carroll County's vision through the year 2030. This proposal resides in an area designated as an urban growth area, due in large part to the close proximity to the city of Carrollton. The area has a population density of 100 to 500 persons per square mile and is in close proximity to higher density areas within the Carrollton city limits. Projected population growth is 1 to 2%, with up to 1,000 new residents forecasted by 2040. This proposal is on a local road which does not meet any of the functional road classifications where you would normally see business activity. The property under discussion is surrounded by designated recreational routes, possibly the largest concentration and most used in Carroll County. What role does spot rezoning have in Carroll County's 20 to 30-year plan? Additionally, what is the rationale for placing a commercial business in the middle of a zoned residential agricultural area? I would contend there is no relevant evidence to support approving this zoning proposal. Would Carroll County's visionaries approve the rezoning or conditional use for this property? We all know there are more appropriate commercial locations in the county for this proposal. Just use Carroll County's roadmap. Thank you for your time and consideration tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Paula Waters of 123 Fairway Drive, Carrollton, Georgia. I've been a licensed realtor for 28 years and currently Board of Realtor President for Carroll, Haralson, and Heard counties. As realtors, we owe and are sworn to help protect private property owner rights. That's why I'm here tonight. You know, we have smart water, we have smart popcorn, and we have smartphones. And all these things, notice the word smart is a part of the phrase. That means there's planning and focused efforts to maintain or improve whatever, whether it be our body or helping us work smarter. Well, we also have a smart growth program that many of you may be familiar. This means a plan for our community. Maybe around 2008, a great comprehensive plan was designed and made up of leaders in our community who helped design plans for our area. They made up policies that have protected the rural landscape, help preserve open space, protect air and water quality, and preserve our agricultural land. Farming is so important to our county. The farmers grow our food, it feeds us, it goes to the grocery stores, we buy it, then the money goes into the community where it becomes a full circle. If we began chipping away some of our agricultural land to conditional zoning, it will set a precedence for commercial eking into our agricultural land, which feeds our families of Carroll County. Smart growth strategies can help rural communities achieve goals for growth and development while maintaining distinctive rural character. I ask you, commissioners, do we want to ruin our smart growth plan, our comprehensive plans, to help only individuals? The event center is a grand idea. There's no doubt it would be top-notch, but just not for this area. We have tons of commercial property already zoned for projects like this. So why destroy our agricultural land? I understand the fact that agricultural land may be less money per acre than commercial land, but do we want to allow this at the expense of our agricultural landowners surrounding the area in question? I urge you to consider the surrounding property owners' plea to stop this conditional zoning to benefit one property owner. We have a great strategic plan for our county. Let's not botch it up now. Let's not be lazy thinkers. Let's think into the future of the detriment of conditional zoning in a rural area. Let's have smart growth that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. We're at about the halfway point, 7.5 minutes.
My name is Laura Camper. I live at 65 Plymouth Lane, less than a mile and a half from this property that you're talking about rezoning. I've heard or seen some of you talking on Facebook about the tax dollars that this would bring in. I'd like you to consider the tax dollars that you're going to have to spend in order to make the road and replace the bridge, the weight-restricted bridge on that road that you'll have to have for the kind of traffic something like this would bring in. The other people who've spoken have mentioned that there are commercial properties already available that could house something like this. I'd also like you to consider all the people who now use those roads for biking and jogging. You don't have any way to make that safer for them if the traffic were to pick up, if trucks were to start using that road. I really hope that you will consider not just what you'll be gaining, but what you'll be losing and what all the people who live back there will be losing if you approve this tonight.
Thank you. Floor remains open. Anyone else?
My name is Richard Whitten. I live at 487 Baxter Road. Now, I don't have the facts that all these other people do, but I do have a few facts. And one of those facts is that land's not going to stay there as it is indefinitely. It will be changed, and you all know that because it's real close to Carrollton. It's going to go for something. I trust that man. Whatever he does is first class. I don't think that whatever buildings and whatever operations that have gone into effect around his properties have gone down. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we're going to close the floor at this time and also close the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. This time I'll call for consideration of the amendment.
I make the motion to not amend section 8.9.2 of the zoning regulations of Carroll County to add the conference and convention center and special events facility, as stated by Artagas earlier.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor of not adding the text amendment, please signal by raising your hand. All those opposed to allowing it, please raise your hand. Thank you. This time we're going to call on Artagas Newell, zoning administrator, to come and read item 10.2 for the rezoning off Martin Cemetery Road. Rules and orders of tonight's conversation for item 10.2. Applicants or proponents of the zoning application shall be allowed 10 minutes to present data, evidence, or opinion. Those opposed to the zoning application shall be allowed 10 minutes as well to present the same data, evidence, and opinion. Both sides shall be allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal. Thank you.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just very briefly, I'll get into the items for consideration. Number one, whether the zoning proposal will permit a use that is suitable in view of the use and development of adjacent and nearby property. Whether the zoning proposal will adversely affect the existing use or usability of adjacent or nearby property. Whether the property to be affected by the zoning proposal has a reasonable economic use as currently zoned. Whether the zoning proposal will result in a use which will or could cause an excessive or burdensome use of existing streets, transportation facilities, utilities, or schools. Whether the zoning proposal is in conformity with the policy and intent of the land use plan, and whether there are other existing or changing conditions affecting the use and development of the property which give supporting grounds for either approval or disapproval of the zoning proposal. And with that, Mr. Chairman, the next item the staff has is consideration of stipend investment LP and applicant John Polk's request for rezoning from agricultural to commercial and a conditional use permit for 6 acres more or less for a conference and event venue center located off Martin Cemetery Road. Mr. Chairman, this request had no recommendation from the Planning Commission. There was a split 3-3 vote. This request also has a recommendation of denial from the staff.
Thank you, Artagas. We'll
Thank you,
call
sir.
upon the applicant.
Hi, I'm Lindy Lovern, and I live at 840 Oak Grove Road. Thank you for the time and opportunity to speak with you this evening about something that I'm very excited and passionate about, which would be the opening of a new venue here in Carroll County. For those with children, one thing you want for them is to succeed. You guide them in the right direction by teaching them the responsibility to work hard, set goals, and ultimately achieve them. That is what my stepfather, John Polk, is doing here. He believes in me, which gives me the confidence to pursue my dream career of having an event and floral design center. I've envisioned a way that will give the community opportunities to create memories that will last forever. This venue will be able to reflect joyful experiences with the ones they love. It will benefit the community by offering space to accommodate events large or small, such as birthdays, graduations, military homecomings, and when planning occasions such as corporate events, rehearsal dinners, proms, or weddings, you can be at ease knowing the venue can accommodate your guest list. High schools don't have to hold proms in cafeterias. Teachers have expressed their support for this exact reason and are excited about future proms and class reunions being held at this venue. This venue will also offer multiple options under one roof. A key factor will be the heat and air conditioning, which is which majority of the venues here don't offer. This small factor will allow events to be more flexible and not be limited by the time of year or the weather. This will also help with local businesses all year round and not just seasonally. This will also allow them to thrive. Businesses such as gas stations, hotels, hair and makeup salons, restaurants, caterers, transportations, and photographers. It'll bring in people from other communities and showcase how great Carrollton really is. The Georgia Department of Community Affairs, under the Georgia Tourism Development Act, has grants for facilities like this that helps bring people in from outstate. The economic impact to Carroll County is huge. This will also create jobs as we will be hiring people full-time. The impact of this site is very minimal. It makes up less than 4% of the total property. Other event sites here are all on county roads, and none of them have caused an issue with traffic or the community. Each event held will be ceased by midnight. We have carefully selected the site location to ensure that the sound will not disturb any surrounding homes. My grandparents, along with my parents, are both building their homes on this property and will not be disturbed by the events held. We will also feature a long sight distant entry and exit way to ensure the safety of our guests. The Buffalo Creek Technology Park, with its expansion of the Seton property, which makes up most of Martin Cemetery Road, is becoming commercial under West Georgia Technical College. This location is across the road from the venue property. Thus, how can this be a zoning issue? In order for our community to grow and flourish, we must allow changes that will benefit as a whole. If we never progress, then we will never grow, which might not affect you now, but it'll affect your children and grandchildren as they become leaders of this town. And at this time, I'd like to ask permission for my father, Kent Levering, to come up and make a statement.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am Kent Lovering, speaking tonight on behalf of my daughter, Lindy. Lindy was born and raised in Carrollton, went off to college, settled in Birmingham for a while, and then decided to come home to work in her family's business. It's not often easy for our young people to return or to stay here after college. Sometimes they're unsure what they want to do, or there may not be a job for them here in the field that they have studied. Often they must compromise or find work elsewhere. Lindy has finally found something that she truly enjoys and wants to create her own career doing it. It can be challenging working for yourself. It takes more risk and a lot of hard work to find success. 31 years ago, I took the same risk and created my own employment. Lindy's great-grandfather, H.O. Lovern, and great-great-grandfather, W.D. Lovern, were well-known entrepreneurs in this area. So I guess you could say that it runs in her family. I believe Lindy has the determination and perseverance required to succeed, and I hope you will give full consideration in allowing her to pursue her dream. Thank you.
Thank you. Still 5 minutes remaining. Anybody, the applicant or proponent of the proposal? Seeing not, we'll close the floor. We'll reset. Now, anybody in opposition, 10 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, again, Ted Meeker, 14 East Broad Street, Noonan, Georgia. We've provided you with a letter and just our analysis in terms of how we don't think this rezoning meets the standards that are set forth in the Carroll County zoning ordinance. You also have a staff report that I want to emphasize. This area, under your future land use plan, allows neighborhood sale commercial uses. I don't believe this use fits into that criteria. That doesn't sound it to me. This area is a very low-density residential area. You have established subdivisions in the area. I understand there's a constant battle when it comes to growth. Old saying goes, you can either plan for it or react to it. I don't know that throwing a dart in the middle of a fairly undeveloped area as your first foray for commercial zoning is necessarily something that this board should do. I think you also may have an argument in terms of whether it would constitute a spot zoning. You guys have adopted a plan. This board's adopted a comprehensive plan, future land use plan. We would ask that you stick to the plan and deny the request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Ron Cryer. I live at 474 Buffalo Creek Road. In the last meeting we had with zoning, I made a statement about the responsibility of everyone involved when developing in certain areas. I've got a background in commercial and residential development. And so what I've seen Carroll County do in my limited time living here, coming from Birmingham, is that we did a really good job of planning what we need to do in that area and designating it as an urban growth area. You know, typically when you see a multi-use urban environment, you see the face of the development be commercial. You see migrating to the rear of those areas, interconnectivity be a green space and park-like environments. And that transitions into what we have in the area that we're talking about right now as low-density residential and agricultural land. It is set up absolutely perfect, and I think you guys know that. That's why I believe that the text amendment should have been carefully considered, and it sounds like it will be. Now's just not the time to add those words to the ordinance and be able to act on them without due diligence. The event center should be denied in its entirety because the placement of that particular commercial venue in this area is backwards to what you typically see in a multi-use development or in an urban growth area. The responsibility and prudence would suggest that a better spot for this development may be in the tech park or any of the other areas where it's already zoned commercial. I think it would be prudent and responsible to have someone kickstart the tech park and allow that to begin to form and be what it can be and be exactly per the comprehensive land plan that you guys and this county has adopted and adopted well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Waters, and I live at 1691 Hayes Mill. And this is, I know this must be a difficult situation for y'all. It is for me, because I don't fundamentally like the idea of restricting somebody's business plan. I really don't. I'm American, I'm a capitalist, I'm a member of the NRA, all those things. And I say that with all due respect for Mr. Paul Chase, your family, and all of you. But I hope that the commission and that the folks that are submitting this will see this from our perspective. When Teresa, my wife, and I moved here in 2002 to serve this community, we left Atlanta, where zoning is the name of a restaurant or a bar, but not entirely two-ordered. And we came here with the idea that we would be able to have property and have land in a residential and agricultural area that we could enjoy for the rest of our lives, and we further thought that that property would hold its value and even increase in value, and we knew that there was a plan for urban development that this commission had sponsored and had created, and we trusted in that, and we know that y'all are the stewards of that process, and we want you to know that we appreciate it and we trust that. And when we come here and make the investment in this property, the thing that the folks that are gathered that oppose this are not opposed to John, and they're not opposed to capitalism. They've made their life investment in this property. I'm fortunate to make a good living, but still, my major investment's in my land. I've got about 50 acres that backs up to the proposed site of where there would be, I even forget about what it is for the time being, spot zoning is, I don't think, the best plan. I was very reassured to see the plan for urban development that y'all and the zoning commission, zoning board, had put together, and it's very good, it's very sound, and I'm reassured by that. And want you to follow that plan and to present plans in a holistic fashion. When people make the investment as they do in their property, they count on that property maintaining its value, and more, even important than that, is they count on the ability to leave wherever it was they came from, in my case, Atlanta, and come here with the idea that they could live out their lives in peace and not have their property value degraded and not have a situation that's out of any of our control take place. It's also important, none of us like to pay taxes, but I will have to say, you got to be realistic. The taxes that we pay, the tax base that we pay, supports the works that y'all do on behalf of the community. And everybody gripes about taxes, but you got to get the reality that that takes money. Passing this would degrade property values, which would then also degrade tax base. And so, with all deference and due respect, John, Chase, and the others, I'm here to submit our side of this argument, which is we don't want anything to happen to our dream, and we see that being potentially degraded, though of course that's not his intention. His intention is to do business, but in the process of that, we'll see a degradation of what it is that we have fought for and invested all of our resources in. And that's not me. That's true with the other people in this. Every single one of them has their major life capital investment in their property and had counted on being able to enjoy it while they live in it and also be able to either pass it on or sell it, something which we don't want interfered with. And I really appreciate your attention. I appreciate your time. This is difficult for all of us. This is not comfortable. But thank you very much for all you do.
Thank you. Anyone else? Still about 2.5, 3 minutes left. If not, we'll close the floor.
Hi, I'm Amanda Pollard at 110 Providence Court, and I am the Sales and Marketing Director at Cottage Landing Senior Living. And speaking to what he said before about peaceful living, Cottage Landing is a senior community. We have 104 residents, 22 are U.S. veterans. This is a quiet and serene community. We want our seniors who have served our country, worked in our mills, taught our families, and who have built this great community we call home to be able to live out their lives in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 minutes left. Ask one more time, 2 minutes left.
My name is Cameron Covert. I live at 300 Buffalo Creek Road. This property, Martin Cemetery, that's in question is in our backyard. It's approximately the length of one football field. When Carrollton High School plays a football game, we hear the band, we hear the marching band, the touchdown, we hear it all. And it's a great distance away than the length of one football field. But this football season doesn't last 365 days a year. It's over. Now, an event center in our backyard, what will take place there? Music? Dancing? Outdoor events? How many days a year? And like everyone else says, this is our investment, and we enjoy the peace and quiet. Thank you.
One minute left. And seeing none, we'll close the floor for the opposition. We'll reset the clock. 5 minutes for rebuttal for either side. We'll call on the applicant or proponents for the rezoning to come first. Anyone for the rebuttal? Applicant or proponents? If not, we'll close the floor. Opposition, 5 minutes for rebuttal. Ask a second. Seeing none, we'll close the floor to comments. Look for a motion from the board.
I make the motion to deny the rezoning off Martin Cemetery Road.
I second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Now any discussion? Seeing none from the board, all those in favor to deny the request, please show up by sign of hand. All those opposed? Thank you. We'll call on Artagas, item 10.3.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The next item we have is consideration of Harvey Culver's request for a conditional use permit and variance to divide a 1.52 acre parcel from a 20.63 acre parcel zone agriculture at 1394 Old Dregtown Trail, Temple. Mr. Chairman, this request has a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission.
Thank you. We're on the same, if you'll call on the applicant or proponents.
My name's Harvey Culver, and I live at 1408 Old Dregtown Trail above Temple, Georgia. And what I'm here for tonight is my mother passed away a year and a half or so ago, and I want to cut her house an acre and a half out of 20 point some odd acres and sell that house an acre and a half of land. And I was told I couldn't do this on account it had an agricultural whatever on it at the tax office. But when I got the tax papers on it this year, it didn't have any exemptions whatsoever on it. I lost homestead exemption. The covenant was canceled, which I was told it couldn't be canceled till the end of 2018. And I got a letter in June, just out of the blue, saying it's canceled. So, according to my tax papers, there's no exemptions on it whatsoever. And the tax bill was about $2,400 on it this year. And I'd like to break that acre and a half out and sell it. And as far as the agricultural deal goes, I don't see where it'd make a lot of difference. I already got a buyer for the house. The people that want to buy the house their family owns the land that adjoins it. As a matter of fact, their family cemetery backs up to this property line. So I would appreciate it if y'all would give me the go-ahead to do that.
Anyone else here, proponents for the application? Any other in support of this? Anybody else? Okay. If you'd like for them to speak, under your 10 minutes.
I'm Sky Senft. I'm his neighbor. I'm the one that's wanting to buy the house. And it does join to my family's land and the family cemetery. So, I'd like for you to make this happen. So,
Thank you very much. Anyone else? If not, we're going to close the floor. Is there anyone here in opposition of this request? Item 10.3. Ask a second time, anyone in opposition? Seeing none, I'll look for a recommendation from the board.
Make a motion from the board to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next item we have is consideration of Jason Jones's request for a conditional use permit to add a secondary detached dwelling in an agricultural zone district at 125 Taylor's Gin Road, Temple. Mr. Chairman, this request has a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission.
Good evening. My name's Jason Jones. Right now I live in Powder Springs, but in 1993 my parents bought 20 acres in Temple. Me and my wife decided we want to go ahead and try to build a house out there to help them out with the property. And that's basically it.
Okay. Anyone else here in favor of this?
No, sir.
That's fine. We'll ask, is anyone here in opposition of this request tonight? We'll make a second request. Anyone in opposition of this request? Seeing none, we'll ask for a motion from the board.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next item we have is consideration of Crystal Carroll's request for a conditional use permit and variance to divide 2 acres for a new home from an 11-acre agricultural zone tract, and also to request a variance to reduce the required minimum square footage from 1,230 square feet to 800 square feet at 738 Little New York Road, Weisburg. Mr. Chairman, this request has a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission.
We have applicants.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Chair. My name is Rita Carroll. I'm Crystal's sister. I live at 8013 Longleaf Drive, Billerica, Georgia. And Crystal has applied for a variance to be able to carve out 2 acres from the 11 acres that belongs to our father. And she's also asked for a variance to reduce the square footage requirement from 1,230 down to 800. This is property that's been owned by our family for about 50 years. And our parents are getting older. They help take care of her grandchildren while she's working. And so she has moved back from Houston, Georgia to live here and to help take care of her grandchildren. And a little history about the property. She had moved a mobile home there several years ago. And at that time, the road was dirt and there was no county water on the road. She paid for county water to be installed. And then since then, the road has been paved part of the way toward her property. And she's just asking to be allowed to carve out the 2 acres and to reduce the square footage requirement for her home.
Okay.
That's it.
Anyone else like to speak as a proponent? Seeing none, we'll close the floor. And we'll ask, is there anyone here in opposition of this request? Item 10.5. Anyone in opposition? Seeing none, look for recommendation consideration from the board.
Make a motion, we approve.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion?
I would like to ask, we did receive the one letter from a Tom Nichols, who is against this, but also mentions that there's a small part of the road not paved. As part of this condition, when the county has funds, would y'all be agreeable to paving that part of the road?
No, because I believe Mr. Nichols, whenever that road was paved, was in favor of that, and my father was not in favor of that. At that time, Mr. Nichols, I don't believe, had to give up any property for the road to be paved because it came in the middle of his property, or where the road already was. But when the county proposed to repave the road, they want to take a good bit of land from my father's property in order to do that. And the only property that's not on the paved road is our property. It's on both sides of the road, so he's not really affected by it. And I actually have a picture here that shows you where his property is, and his tractor trailer is actually parked on property that will eventually be mine on the paved road. So the property that he has access to the paved road.
I wanted to, could I ask Mr. Skipper something?
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a minimum square footage of housing. How is it that, and I can understand the need for smaller housing, but how does that affect our process?
Which one are we on? Is this one the 12, this one the less than 1230? Yes. That's why they're here before us today. Our minimum is 1,230 square feet, and anything that would go below that, we would ask them to come before the board for a use permit for, a hardship or other times like that that would warrant it. The area is on Old Little New York Road. Affecting the adjoining surrounding owners, I wouldn't anticipate any effect. I wouldn't anticipate this would affect any of the adjoining property owners. Much of the adjoining property owners that you're referring to is Donald Carroll's brother, Larry Carroll, his nephew Keith Carroll, and his other nephew, Jason. So what we really have is kind of a family compound here at the end of the road.
Thank you.
And you asked me that because I was from Whitesburg, right?
We thought you were gonna keep going with Daryl and Daryl and Daryl.
Sure. Will you please speak into those recorded? Thank you.
Eventually, I would be the property owner on the other side, and I'm obviously not opposed.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Whose district is this in?
Mine.
Commissioner Jackson? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next item we have is a request from Scotty Wortham and Teresa Allen for a conditional use permit for a secondary detached dwelling, and also a request to reduce the required minimum square footage from 1,230 square feet to 900 square feet at 387 Mount Olive Road, Bowden. Mr. Chairman, this request has a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Allen. I currently reside at 4823 Clove Drive, Mableton. My mom lives at the property currently at 387 Mount Olive Road. And what we're proposing is to add a second house to that property for my dad to live in. He was in an accident last year and has decided to depart Atlanta and come back home, as he says. So without the two of them living in the same house, this will put them close enough that need be either myself or my siblings can help them out when needed. And I know initially, we thought the house would probably be about 900 square feet, but it's the one that it will be a manufactured home, and that home meets the requirement.
It will
of
meet the
square-
standard
Yes.
requirements. Anyone else here to speak for this request? If,
Sister.
My name is Anise Prothrow, and I reside at 527 Mount Olive Road, just above the spot that it'll be. And I'll probably have to be the one helping take care of them, because I'm the only one there on the road. So it'll be hard for me to run back and forth two different places. But I would appreciate it if y'all grant it. Thank you.
absolutely. Anyone else? Proponents? If not, is there anyone in opposition of item 10.6? Anyone in opposition of item 10.6? Seeing none, we'll look for motion consideration from the board.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Now, any discussion?
10.6, 10.4. Which one were we just talking about? Pardon me, but I
Ten.
thought
I'm
we
showing
just-
10.6, 387 Mount Olive Road.
that's the one that we're discussing right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I thought that's 10.4.
10.6.
Oh, we're on 6, right. No.
Oh, okay, what's going down the road there?
We're good.
Still open. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on item 10.6? You good?
Can we discuss it? Is that-
Absolutely. Any
Oh.
discussion? I'm sorry.
Okay, yes. But once again, I just want to make sure on the size of the square footage, ma'am.
Yeah, she just quantified it. They will meet the minimum requirements or have to go back and talk to Ben and them about it.
And a manufactured home meets that too. Okay, that's just, it protects, yeah. It's good.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, item 10.6, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Partagas?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The last item we have is consideration of Anthony and Tracy Harrell's request for a conditional use permit to add a secondary detached dwelling at 744 Teague Road, Waco. Mr. Chairman, this request has a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission.
Welcome home.
My name's Tracy Harrell. I live at 744 Teague Road. And we're asking permission to put a secondary house on the back side of my property for my son.
Okay. Anyone else here to speak?
Well, my husband's here.
We take it he's for it as well.
Yes.
All righty. He doesn't have to speak. He's welcome to. You've gone on record now and it's recorded. That's what we needed. All right, we'll stop at this time. Item 10.7, we're going to ask, is there any opposition from the floor for this request? We'll ask two for recording. Any opposition for item 10.7 for opposition of this request? Seeing none, we'll look for recommendation consideration from the board.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Now, any discussion? Seeing no discussion from the board, will all those in favor for the recommendation? All those opposed?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you.
Yeah. I can get one up here. Just get to see them. Say how you like it.